All right, happy Thursday, everyone. Almost time for the weekend. My name is Ashley Burrell. Many of you guys know me by now. Many of you guys have interacted with me. I am the Senior Compliance Specialist here at the Community Partnership for the Prevention of Homelessness. Me and my team, we oversee contract compliance and monitoring. So we're those folks that bother you about your unusual incident reports, your critical incident reports. We bother you about those client complaints, your audits, all of that good stuff. I am here joined with my partner, Shawn Billups, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. A lot of you know me, as Ashley just stated, from emails. And here we are with the UIR CR Investigations 101 training. I'm Shawn Billups Jr. I'm the compliance specialist here at TCP. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday.
Awesome. And we do have a few more TCP folks here joining with us today. They'll just be assisting us with some tech stuff. Shout out to our training team, Jesse Klingerman and Cassidy. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our deputy chief, as I just mentioned, Ms. Candace Coates is here as well. And we also have Jenna Kearney, our contract compliance specialist. And we also have Marshika G, our federal grants administrator. So shout out to our TCP team also for joining us today. Let's go ahead and get started. So today, during this training, we will be talking about a UIR, known as an unusual incident report, and a critical incident report. We'll talk about the difference between an unusual incident report and a critical incident report. We'll talk about what information should be included in a UIR and CRR, how to submit a UIR and CRR. We'll talk a little bit about emergency incidents. We'll talk about supporting documents to submit along with the UIR and the CRR. We'll also talk about the UIR and CRR investigation process, what to expect after an investigation is concluded. And then we're going to get into some fun stuff. We're going to have some breakout rooms. We're going to have our Q&A session. And then you guys are going to be on your way. As I mentioned, housekeeping rules, there will be a portion for our Q&A. So if you can just hold your questions into the end until we get to that segment, that'll be great. I promise you, we're going to make sure that all of your questions are answered before you leave this training. All right, Mr. Billups, go ahead and get us started.
What is a UIR/CRR? A UIR is an unusual incident report, and this is for DHS funded programs, and critical incident reports are for HUD funded programs. Both of them consist of an event which affects the contractor's staff or program participants in a manner that is significantly different from regular routine or established procedures. And examples of unusual incident reports are not limited to death, injury, unexplained absence of program participants, physical, sexual, verbal abuse of program participants by staff or other program participants, staff negligence, fire, theft, destruction of property, sudden or serious problems with the physical facility. What is the difference between an unusual incident report and a critical incident report? An unusual incident report, as we stated before, is programs funded by DHS, and UIRs must be submitted to both DHS and TCP. UIRs must be submitted using the DHS UIR report form. A critical incident report is an incident report that is required to be completed by programs funded by HUD only. Critical incident reports do not require submission to DHS, only TCP. Critical incident report can be simply written and submitted in a Word document to TCP's critical incident report tracker. Information to be included for versus information that should be excluded in a CRR/UIR. Information to be included, if you want, you can take notes, a detailed description of the incident. We need every detail from what took place, who was involved, everything that you witnessed. We need a factual information, date, time, and location of the incident. Any follow-up or safety plan in place, disciplinary actions if applicable. If police was involved, we need a police badge number and case number, and any hospital information if applicable. But if hospital information, if the client refused, we would need a medical refusal form as well. Information that should be excluded are personal opinions, vague description of the incident, such as client fell and we did nothing. We need more information on how they fell. What did they hurt themselves? Anything of that sort. Any details that was not observed by writer of the UIR directly. Information received via hearsay. Client personal information, which involves the social security number, client medical information that will be a HIPAA violation, address of client, and that is for domestic violence programs. How to submit a UIR/CIR. An unusual incident report should be submitted as soon as the incident is de-escalated, or within 24 hours of the occurrence of the incident, or within 24 hours of being aware of the incident. A UIR should be submitted to DHS first with a detailed description of the incident and follow-up link. The link is below. Once the UIR is submitted to DHS, save it. We typically recommend using a PDF when you save it, then upload the completed report to TCP Smartsheets Tracker along with all supporting documents such as emergency termination documents, written violation notices, anything, as well as medical refusal forms. A critical incident report should be submitted as soon as the incident is de-escalated, within 24 hours of the occurrence of the incident, or within 24 hours of being aware of the incident. CRR should be submitted via to the below TCP Smartsheets Tracker.
So, Mr. Billups, we're just going to pause right here. I just want to make sure we show a visual of these two trackers to folks.
Great idea.
So, are you guys able to see my screen? Critical Incident Report Tracker.
This critical incident report form are for HUD-funded programs. As a reminder, this is the form that you fill out.
So, as you notice, thank you, Mr. Billups. As you guys notice, HUD-funded programs. When you're completing this report, this is the information that you're required to input. So, the person completing the report, please include your name, phone number, email address, the name of your agency, your program name, program address, date of incident, the time of incident, person involved or individuals involved. And then you're going to be required to specify those individuals involved with their clients, staff, volunteers, etc. Any additional folks involved, you'll be required to input here. Witnesses, if there were any witnesses that witnessed the incident, you'll be required to input that information here as well. Whether or not CFSA was contacted. So this will be for our family programs that serve children. If there is an incident involving children, neglect, abuse, anything like that that requires CPS to be contacted, please note here if you had to contact CFSA. You'll also be required to note here if the police was contacted and also DCF EMS. Here you'll be required to put your follow-up actions. So what did you do regarding the incident? What are next steps? Will there be any terminations, etc.? Let us know what steps your agency is taking to address this incident. Many times we notice that folks are just submitting incidents to us and they're not letting us know next steps. Okay, so this person fell, they had to go to the hospital. Then what? Are you going to call and check on them? Have they returned back to the facility? What's next steps? A client set something on fire. Okay, then what? What are we doing with that client? Are there any disciplinary measures taken? So please be sure to include your follow-up actions. In here, you'll be required to upload a copy of your critical incident report. As Mr. Billups just mentioned, for critical incident reports, there's not an actual report form like our unusual incident reports. You guys can just simply type up your incident in the form of a Microsoft Word document. So just simply upload that here. I always recommend that you send a copy of your responses to yourself just so you can have confirmation that you did submit your report. In case TCP comes back and say, we didn't get this report, you can send us your evidence like, hey, bam, we submitted this at 11:16 a.m. on June 1st, and you'll have that confirmation to your email. So I always recommend that you always click to send a copy of your responses. Similar to critical incident reports, here's your unusual incident report tracker. Two separate trackers, as Mr. Billups just mentioned. Unusual incident reports are only for DHS funded programs. Critical incident reports are HUD funded programs. So DHS folks, your trackers look similar to critical incident reports. You're required to input your provider name, program name of person submitting the report, email address of the person submitting the report, date of the incident. Now, this is where we get into a little different than critical incident reports. For unusual incident reports, they all have an identification number known as the AC number. I want to say it's like a 5 to 6 digit number, and that's the number to be able to identify the UIR. So oftentimes when you receive an email from someone at TCP, often myself or Mr. Billups, you'll see us reference the unusual incident report by the AC number. So please take a look when you're submitting this report or sending an unusual incident report to TCP to include the AC number here. You're going to have to indicate whether or not assault or death, if it was an assault or death incident, whether or not CCTV was reviewed. Oftentimes we get questions about what is CCTV? This is surveillance footage. So if there was an incident that was captured on surveillance footage and you reviewed the surveillance footage following the incident, you'll just indicate yes or no here. Similar to critical incident reports, we need to know your follow-up plan. So if something happens with the client, what's next? What's next steps? What do you want to do next about that? So please be sure to include your follow-up plan. In here, you're going to upload. Remember, Mr. Billups said for UIRs, you're required to report to DHS first via the QuickBase system. After you complete that report via the QuickBase system, you're going to download and save a copy of that same report and upload it to the UIR tracker here for TCP via the Smartsheet. Similar as critical incident reports, send a copy of your responses just so you can have it for your records, and then bam, submit, and then we'll have it on the back end. Sorry about that, Mr. Billups. Just wanted to make sure we specify that. And I'll let you continue.
Valuable. That's valuable information. Okay, let's keep going. Emergency incidents. Emergency incidents should be reported to TCP via the emergency hotline within 2 hours from the occurrence of the incident. So unlike the other UIRs that's non-emergency, you have within 24 hours. Emergency incident, you have 2 hours from the occurrence of the incident. So you report it to the emergency hotline with the number right here, which is the 877-341-3702. When reporting an emergency incident to the hotline, you will be prompted to provide the following information. The name of the employee submitting the report, the phone number, email address, the employee's title, the provider, the program name, and a brief description of the incident. But remember, you do not want to be vague. You want to give details of the incident. Classifications of an emergency incident include, but are not limited to, a client found to be in possession of a weapon while at the program. A client or staff member is assaulted with the use of a weapon. The occurrence of a physical altercation between a client and employee and or security or janitorial personnel. A client obtains life-threatening injuries as a result of a physical altercation that requires immediate medical attention, or power outage at a program facility that lasts longer than 1 hour. So we're gonna do a quick quiz, true or false. So let's pay attention, and we're looking for answers, okay?
So just in case, if folks are able, you can unmute yourself if you want to answer the question via your mic, or you could put it in the chat. Everyone's able to join or participate. So please, if you know these answers, go ahead and put it in the chat or unmute yourself and give us the answer. First question.
An unusual incident report is required to be submitted only to TCP. True or false? Wow, Rebecca, you answered fast. Oh, the answers are coming in.
False.
Okay.
True.
Somebody.
False.
Okay, false. We have somebody said true. I heard true. I heard false. It's a lot of false. I hear true.
Oh,
So
you
the
did
answer is
say,
false.
oh,
UIR should be submitted to both DHS and TCP within 24 hours from the occurrence of the incident or within 24 hours of becoming aware of the incident. True or false? An unusual incident report and critical incident report should only include facts and should be free from personal opinions. True or false?
True.
true.
Okay.
True.
It's a whole lot of truth. Any false? Anybody think
True.
false?
True.
Oh, it's unanimous. It's unanimous.
Mm-hmm.
Check y'all out. Check y'all out. Next question. An emergency incident should be reported to TCP via TCP's emergency incident hotline within 24 hours from the occurrence of the incident. True or false?
False. True.
True, false. Which one? False, false. I see some true.
False. False.
True.
All the above.
You can't do it. You can't do it at the start. You have to do it at the end, right? So you can have the detail.
I see false. I see true. Somebody said they kicked out.
All
The answer is
above.
false. It must be reported to TCP within 2 hours.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Miller. Yes, sir.
It was a trick question. For all those that said false, good job.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Billups.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Supporting documents to submit along with the UIR and CIR. So when submitting a UIR or CIR, it is important to submit all applicable documents needed to support your UIR or CIR. Supporting documents can include, but are not limited to, rule violation notices issued to the client of interest. So with your rule violation notices, y'all, we noticed that sometimes folks upload a copy of their rule violation notice that was issued to a client, but it's not signed. So I know sometimes clients refuse to sign, but that needs to be noted on the rule violation notice. Please make sure your clients are getting copies of these rule violation notices, and they need to be signed. If the client refuses to sign, please make sure that you note that on the rule violation notice. Termination notices, those are also supporting documents that should be uploaded along with the UIR or CIR. So termination notices, whether it be emergency or your non-emergency, known as your 15-day termination. Compliance finding document. This is only applicable to our DHS funded programs that submit UIRs. So with the compliance finding document, anytime that you submit an emergency termination for a client, that has to be submitted to DHS for approval. And the emergency termination has to be submitted to DHS within 24 hours. If you submit it a minute after the 24-hour mark, guess what? They're not going to review it and they're going to deny it. And you're going to have to move forward with other options. So please make sure that if you want to do emergency termination for our DHS folks, that you're submitted to DHS within 24 hours. We do understand that sometimes it may take DHS maybe a day to get back with you regarding the compliance finding document to confirm whether or not the termination was upheld. And we understand that you might not have that document at the time that you submit the unusual incident report to us, which is fine. But as soon as you receive the compliance finding document, please make sure that you are emailing either myself or Mr. Billups, whoever reaches out to you about the unusual incident report. Make sure you provide us a copy of that the compliance finding document confirming whether or not the termination was upheld by DHS. Police reports, that's another supporting document. If an incident occurs at your program site that involves you contacting 911, oftentimes the police will come out, they'll provide their badge number, and they will also provide a police report. Please make sure you're also submitting that along with your UIR or your CIR. As Mr. Billups just mentioned several times, refusal of medical attention form. Please, y'all, make sure y'all remember, anytime a client refuses medical attention, you must provide them with a copy of the refusal of a medical attention form to sign to confirm that they did not want medical attention. This is to protect you because a client can go and say that you guys never offered them medical attention. So this is to protect you. Please make sure anytime a client refuses medical attention that you are providing them with that form to sign. There's also a line on that form. We understand also, similar to your rule violation notices, that clients may refuse to sign. There is a line on the refusal of medical attention form that you're able to identify whether or not, or indicate that the client refused to sign, and then a witness is able to sign in that place. Incident reports completed by security. I know we have a few security vendors joining us today. Whenever there's an incident, security is required to do their own separate incident report, just like program staff. Most times, or oftentimes, so what they're required to do, security vendors are also required to give you a copy of their incident report. So when your program side or program teams, when you're submitting us your unusual incident reports or your critical incident reports, please make sure you also provide a copy of the security incident report as well, if your site has a security vendor and a security officer is involved. Photos. Oftentimes, an incident may have some require you to take photos, maybe of the item that was confiscated or whatever the case may be. That's another example of a supporting document that should be provided along with your unusual incident report and your critical incident report. And my favorite, surveillance footage, because surveillance footage lets you know what it is and what it ain't. So if surveillance footage, if an incident occurs at your program site and it is captured by surveillance footage, please make sure you download a copy of that surveillance footage and upload that along with your unusual incident report. All right, now getting into the UIR/CRR investigation process, the fun stuff. So if TCP determines that a UIR or CRR requires further investigation after review, the program manager, as well as all applicable staff, such as SHOSA director, executive director, will be contacted via email by a TCP representative. That may be myself, often Mr. Billups or Ms. Marshika G., to gather further information regarding the incident and to request any additional documentation needed to aid in the investigation. Further documentation that can be requested include, but is not limited to, client staff witness statements, surveillance footage, as we just talked about. Please note that depending on the incident, TCP may request to conduct interviews. So this can be done virtually. We may let you know, like, hey, we need to set up some virtual interviews with maybe the individuals involved or witnesses. Or there may be times where we may come actually out to your program site to conduct interviews with your witnesses or individuals involved in an incident. So don't be alarmed if you get an email or call from us letting you know that we're coming out to a program site to conduct interviews. When the UIR or CRR moves to the investigation process, TCP will request that the program, security, or janitorial vendor, when applicable, also complete an internal investigation of the incident and provide TCP with its findings in the form of an internal investigation summary report. The purpose of this is because we want to know, you're required to demonstrate to us, as this incident occurred at your program site, how have you worked to address this incident? What were your findings? What additional information did you find out about the incident? So essentially, you'll be conducting an internal investigation while TCP conducts the overall investigation. UIR/CRR investigation process continue. Depending on the incident, TCP may request that a staff person, security, or janitorial personnel be removed from all TCP contracting sites until the investigation is completed. So incidents like this will typically be your incidents where a security officer maybe use excessive force with the client, a staff member gets into a physical altercation with the client, a janitorial staff member gets into a physical altercation with the client. Those are red flags to us, and we cannot allow the staff member to continue to work at the site while we're completing the investigation of that incident. So in incidents like that, please don't be alarmed when we tell you that this staff member or this security officer has to be removed while we complete an investigation. If TCP requests the removal of a staff person, security, or janitorial personnel pending the outcome of the investigation, the program manager or agency leadership will be required to confirm via email that the requested individual or individuals have been removed from the notice sites. So when myself or Mr. Billups or Ms. G reaches out to you via email and lets you know, hey, we're in receipt of this incident report and we have initiated an investigation, we are requesting that Ms. Johnson be removed from this site immediately and all TCP sites pending the outcome of this investigation. You are required to email us back and confirm that this individual has been removed. When a UIR or CIR investigation is initiated by TCP, the program will be provided with a due date to provide the requested information needed for the investigation. Failure to adhere to the due dates provided in the investigation process can result in the issuance of a deficiency notice and or the withholding of contract payment. We do understand that you guys are tied down with a lot of stuff and you have a lot of stuff going on at one time, and maybe you're not able to adhere to the due dates because of some other pressing matters. Process should be communicated to TCP as soon as possible. So if we reach out to you and tell you that your due date to get us information is June 3rd at 5 p.m., I don't want to receive an email at 4 p.m. on June 3rd saying that you need an extension. Please let us know as soon as possible that you may need an extension. We're willing to work with y'all, but please let us know as soon as possible that you may need an extension during the investigation process to collect documents or collect the information that we've requested. All right, the investigation has concluded. What can I expect next? Sorry, my dog wants to join the training. After TCP has concluded an UIR/CRR investigation, the program will be notified via email that the investigation has concluded as well as the findings. So you'll receive an email from us. Hey, good afternoon, good morning. Just to give you a heads up, we have concluded this investigation. Here are our findings, and then we'll provide further guidance and further steps. So in the investigation conclusion email correspondence, TCP will also provide further guidance as it relates to permanent removal of a staff member. So we told you that a staff person or security officer had to be temporarily removed while we complete the investigation. In this email correspondence, we'll let you know if that person is able to return to work or if they have to be permanently removed from all TCP sites. Please note that if TCP requests the permanent removal of a staff person, security, or janitorial personnel after an investigation is concluded, the provider and or the security or janitorial vendor will be required to provide TCP with an updated staffing list, known as your 905 form, confirming that the individuals of interest will no longer be charged a TCP contract. And that is typically required to be submitted to us within 24 hours. So June 1st, today, if we tell you that we've concluded an investigation and we find that Ms. Green has to be permanently removed from all TCP sites, we would need an updated 905/staffing list confirming Ms. Green's removal no later than 5 p.m. tomorrow. There are instances where TCP may request that a staff person, security, or janitorial personnel be retrained on certain topics, such as conflict resolution, de-escalation, boundaries of confidentiality, HSRA, whatever the incident is. Sometimes we may not deem it appropriate to fully remove the staff person, but we may request that that staff person or individuals be retrained before returning to work. Confirmation that noted individual have completed the trainings will need to be provided and accepted by TCP before the individual or individuals is allowed to return back to work. Please note that TCP may reopen an investigation into an incident at any time. So if you receive an email from us today saying that we close an investigation, if we receive some updated information, we can reopen an investigation next week. So if it's closed, that's not the end all be all. We are able to reopen an investigation if we see fit or necessary. All right, here comes our participation again. Unmute yourself, drop them answers in the chat. Let's get ready for this quiz. All right, this is a multiple choice question. Which of the following is a supporting document that should be submitted with a UIR/CRR when applicable? A, refusal of medical attention form. B, rule violation notice. C, termination documents. Or D, all of the above?
All of
All of above.
D,
Above.
D, all of the above.
Okay.
All the above.
All of the above.
Kelly, okay. I have a map. If you say all of the above, you got it right.
Yeah.
Awesome job. All of these documents listed are examples of supporting documents that should be submitted to TCP along with an unusual incident report or critical incident report. Next question, true or false? After requested by TCP, it is up to the provider to determine if a staff person, security, or janitorial staff member should be removed from a TCP contractor site, pending the outcome of the investigation.
False.
I heard a true. I heard a false. I'm going to read that one more time. True or false? After requested by TCP, it is up to the provider to determine if a staff person, security, or janitorial staff member should be removed from a TCP contracted site pending the outcome of the investigation. I heard a lot of false. I heard a true. False.
False. That's false.
That is false.
False.
Exactly. Correct. If TCP requests the removal of a staff person, security, or janitorial personnel pending the outcome of the investigation, the noted individual or individuals must be removed. No exceptions. Good job. All right. True or false? A provider, security, or janitorial vendor may be required to complete an internal investigation of an incident that occurs at a TCP contracted site and provide TCP with its findings.
True.
True.
True. Look at y'all. True. Yes, you may be required to complete an internal investigation of the incident that took place at your program site and provide TCP with its findings. That is true. Where we're going to go through each scenario as a group, and then we're going to discuss as a group.
On May 24th, 2023, at approximately 3:30 p.m., Program Assistant Felicia Ford of Chesapeake Women's Shelter told me she saw clients, Melissa Johnson and Maria Gordon, engage in a physical altercation. She told me that she saw Miss Gordon hit Miss Johnson in the head, which caused Miss Johnson to bleed. It was determined that Miss Johnson needed medical attention. At approximately 3:35 p.m., I contacted 911 and reported the incident and requested medical assistance. EMS arrived to the shelter at approximately 3:46 p.m. and assessed Ms. Johnson. The paramedics determined that it was best that Ms. Johnson be transported to the hospital to be further assessed. However, she refused. At approximately 3:58 p.m., EMS departed the facility and Ms. Johnson and Ms. Gordon were directed back to their dorms. Questions to discuss. Please identify the errors which this critical incident report. Okay, so it's up for discussion.
Yep. So anybody, you can unmute or drop in the chat. First question, please identify the errors with this critical incident report. Any errors?
She never signed a refusal medical form.
Awesome. Yep.
That's one of the errors.
Yep. She never provided the client with the refusal of medical attention form. And because I'm sharing my screen, I'm unable to see when hands are raised. So you guys can just, yep.
Mr. Dwayne has his hand raised.
Okay.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Well, I was looking at it, first of all, whenever you have an incident and someone who definitely was assaulted, I see here that when they said the situation was over and they sent everyone back to the ones, first you have to definitely see whether they're staying at, because they both stay in the same dorms. You definitely don't want to send them back in the same area where they're sleeping, or you didn't mention whether they're on different floors at all. So you definitely want to keep them separated for the situation to make sure the situations don't occur anymore.
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Dwayne. So far with the errors, Mr. Dwayne mentioned that the two, they weren't separated. Someone mentioned that the client was not provided with the refusal of medical attention form, which is an error. Great job. There's another error in this report. Can anybody identify the other error?
Shouldn't Miss Felicia Ford be making the report?
Exactly. Exactly. Great. Yes, that is good job, Ms. Apaxio. Remember, we talked about incident reports or critical incident reports should not be written based on hearsay. So this report, it says, She told me that she saw Miss Gordon hit Miss Johnson in the head, which caused Miss Johnson to bleed. So if program assistant Felicia Ford saw the incident, she should have written the report, as Mr. Paxfield mentioned. You guys are not able to write a report based on hearsay. Good job, Mr. Faxio. All right, number 2, please identify what the program staff failed to do during this incident. Well, Mr. Dwayne already mentioned that the two were not separated. Someone also mentioned that they failed to provide the client with the medical refusal form. That's another thing that program staff failed to do. Number 3, what information was missing from the critical incident report?
The engine number wasn't provided, nor did they state whether or not the police actually came or anything, because that was an assault.
Okay, that is some information that was missing. Great job. Anything else that was missing from this incident report?
The EMS's names.
Okay, great job. That is something else that was missing from this report. There is something else too that's missing.
I don't see the count number. I don't know if that's not the correct word, but you know, the important number that follows you. I don't. What's the name of the number that I want to say so I can say the correct words?
The AC number?
Yes, the AC number and the address to where the situation was located at. And I don't see, like the lady said, no police report numbers and a badge ID number.
Okay. Good job, Ms. Du.
Thank you.
There's one more thing that's missing here that someone haven't mentioned yet. So remember in the training, we were talking about when you're reporting an incident to us about something that took place at your program site, what are you doing to address it? So in this incident, one client hit the other client in the head. So what's missing here?
The answer to what's the follow-up plan?
Exactly, a follow-up plan. So what's going to take place with the client that hit the other client in the head? Are there going to be any disciplinary measures? Was the client issue a rule violation notice? What's happening with that? So yes, that is something that's also missing from this incident report. Number 4, what supporting documents should be submitted along with this critical incident report?
I'm going to say the other supporting document that needs to be submitted with this incident report is the medical refusal.
That is correct. Yes, the medical refusal form should have been submitted with this incident report. Great job. Other supporting documents. So as we mentioned, this piece was missing from this report, but if disciplinary measures were taken with the client that hit the other client in the head, those will be documents that should also be submitted along with this report. So if the client was issued a rule violation notice, if they were terminated, suspended, those are types of documents that should also be submitted along with this report.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, as I'm reading the report, I'm trying to figure out, because I know she told the program associate that she witnessed an assault. So when 911 was called, 911 came, and I'm seeing that no one was arrested of assault, because I feel as though if a program associate actually about assault, someone being assaulted and hitting the head, you would think that someone would be arrested, and a police report would be reported as well, as far as in this situation here.
Yes, Mr. Dwayne, that is correct. So in this case, the report doesn't say if somebody was arrested, but assuming that they were, good job. The police report will be another supporting document that should be provided. Awesome. All right, number 5, please identify which entities this report should be submitted to. So make sure you pay attention to what kind of report this is and identify who this should be resubmitted to.
Yes, this is Mary Castiblanco, and the report should be submitted to the TCP webpage and our supervisor.
Awesome. And can you explain why it should be submitted only to TCP?
It's part of the requirements of the for the organization and to protect the clients and the company.
Yes. So the thing here, this is a critical incident report. This is what you pay attention to. So remember, we talked about critical incident reports are for HUD funded programs that should only be submitted to TCP. So these do not require to be submitted to DHS. So great job, guys, with this.
Thank you.
Great job with this scenario. All right, scenario 2. Can I have another volunteer read scenario 2?
On May 26, 2023, at approximately 6:05 p.m., Jack Matthews entered Everlasting Housing's transitional housing program and went to the dining area. At about 6:07 p.m., I heard yelling and a lot of commotion coming from the dining area and immediately contacted Officer Moore with Security Nation, who was also on duty at the time, and I asked if he would accompany me to the dining areas to assess the situation. After arriving to the dining area, I saw resident Billy Rogers bleeding from his right leg and laying on the floor. As Officer Moore and I entered the dining room, I noticed Mr. Matthews running out of the dining area and heading to the front door of the facility. Officer Moore immediately followed and stopped Mr. Matthews. 5 other residents were in the dining area at the time of the incident and reported that Mr. Matthews stabbed Mr. Rogers in his leg. Mr. Matthews was detained and searched by Officer Moore, and a pocket knife was discovered in Mr. Matthews' back pocket. The pocket knife was confiscated, and at approximately 6:12 p.m., Officer Moore contacted MPD for Mr. Matthews, and I contacted paramedics for Mr. Rogers. At approximately 6:20 p.m., MPD Officer Rick Martin, badge number 02345, arrived at the site and arrested Mr. Matthews and transported him out of the facility. At approximately 6:22 p.m., EMS arrived and assessed Mr. Rogers and determined that Mr. Rogers should be transported to the hospital for further treatment. At approximately 6:25 p.m., EMS departed the facility with Mr. Rogers and transported him to Howard University Hospital. Mr. Rogers was alert at the time of exiting the facility. A police report was received from Officer Martin following this incident. Follow-up plan 1. An emergency termination was completed and submitted to DHS on behalf of Mr. Matthews.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. So questions to discuss with this scenario. Number 1, how soon should TCP be made aware of this incident, and how should TCP be made aware?
Hours, because this is an emergency incident, and via the hotline.
Awesome. And how soon should this be reported, since it is an emergency incident?
I thought I said 2 hours.
Oh, awesome. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Awesome. Yep, that is correct. 2 hours. This is an emergency incident, and it should be reported to TCP within 2 hours. Awesome job. Number 2, what supporting documents should be submitted along with this unusual incident report?
Okay, thank you. I would say the rule violation, the police report, refusal or medical attention, and the incident report, and the surveillance and photos, and those what I would like to say: photos, surveillance, and maybe the violation notice, because they still gonna have to get a write-up behind that, if I'm right.
You are correct. And also because they did include in the incident report a follow-up plan, and they stated that an emergency termination was completed and submitted to DHS. So that means that a copy of that emergency termination should also be provided or submitted along with this report. And there's one more document that we talked about after it's received that should be submitted, because this is an emergency termination. And what's that document?
I'm going to say, since security was involved in this incident, we would get a copy of their incident report too.
That is correct. We should also include a copy of the security incident report. That is correct. Good job, Alan.
I have a couple people in the chat saying police report as well.
Police report, that is correct. There's one more document, since an emergency termination was submitted. There's one more document that we should have for this.
My question was about the emergency termination package because it needed a lot of document and we have 2 hours. Is it possible like to collect all of those documents in 2 hours?
No. So with the emergency incident, you don't have to when you submit an emergency or report an emergency incident via the hotline, you don't have to submit all of those documents. That's just to make us aware of the incident. So that's more so a verbal report. So the actual documentation can be submitted with the actual incident report that's required to be submitted within 24 hours. So for emergency incidents, it's more of a verbal report. You're calling to that hotline number and then you verbally report the incident to us. And it's transcribed to TCP in the form of an email. But the actual supporting documents, you still have 24 hours to gather and submit those documents.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, I've got another hand from Tasia too.
Yes, Ms. Du.
You can unmute.
I think, is this the one where you said something about the TCP compliance upheld?
Yes, exactly. Good job, Ms. Du. So remember we talked about for DHS funded programs, when you submit an emergency termination to DHS, you should receive a compliance finding document back from DHS confirming whether or not the termination was upheld. So that is another document that should be submitted. Good job, Ms. Du. Number 3, what additional steps should the program take or be prepared to take regarding this incident?
And you mentioned it earlier that somebody should be terminated, if I'm not mistaken, because of the fact that they had a weapon on the premises.
Yep. So you're right. Somebody should be terminated. So that is another step that the program should be looking to take. There's another or a few more steps.
Okay. I was just going to note that there were multiple clients that were in the dining area, but it doesn't mention that any staff were in there. So one of the things that I think I would do is just evaluate whether our staffing is in the right place at the right time to prevent incidents.
Exactly. Good job, Rebecca. And so this ties into, you remember we were talking about earlier that when an incident like this takes place at your site, TCP is going to request that you complete an internal investigation. So that's something that you will want to investigate internally, Rebecca. That's a great point. Where was staff when this took place? So this is something that you will want to ask or look into when you complete your own internal investigation regarding this incident. So great job, Rebecca. Number 4, during the investigation process, what additional documents / information should the program gather and be prepared to submit to TCP?
Yes, I can hear you. You pronounced it right. I would say get statements from the residents that was in the area when the incident happened.
Yes, ding, ding, ding. You got it. Yes, that is definitely something that remember we talked about collecting witness statements and all of that good stuff. This report did mention that there were 5 other residents in the dining area when this took place. So that means that you guys should be working together, those statements from those 5 residents that were in there to get an understanding of what took place. So yes, great job. What other documents or information should be gathered?
A couple people in the chat have said surveillance footage.
Absolutely. Surveillance footage. Absolutely. So we have surveillance footage. We have witness statements. Absolutely. Those are correct.
Yeah, and collecting the information, also seeing where the client is, the one who was assaulted, and seeing if he feels safer, probably in another continuum of care facility, or if he doesn't mind staying, because some clients would like to flee an incident like that. So preferably more counseling, more information to see where that client is and do they feel safe.
That is correct. Good job, Tiana. Anything else from the group?
I think I would, after I do my address the incident and then the program findings, I think what are the follow-up, what was she saying? The follow-up measures or the follow-up situation that we would take.
Awesome. So termination, maybe if there were any additional protocols put in place for staff. So as Rebecca mentioned earlier, something she would want to know was, where was staff? So following an incident like this, maybe you guys will want to implement maybe another protocol internally that increased rounds around the facility. So yes, that is correct. We want to know, any additional follow-up steps you guys have taken to address the incident or to prevent this incident from happening again. So great job. Number 5, please identify which entities this report should be submitted to. So this is an unusual incident report. So who should this report be submitted to?
Also, a lot of people in the chat saying DHS and TCP.
That is correct. Good job. Remember, unusual incident reports should be reported to 2 entities, DHS and TCP. Sometimes people miss the step of reporting to TCP. Unusual incident reports should be submitted to both DHS and TCP within 24 hours. Good job, guys. All right, we have 2 more left. Scenario 3. Can I have another volunteer read scenario 3 for us?
On June 1st, 2023, at approximately 7:03 a.m., Carla Stanton entered Bethany's women's shelter and appeared to be under the influence of an unknown substance. Ms. Stanton proceeded through the facility and went into the recreation room, which was closed at the time. Program assistant Monique Lester approached Ms. Stanton and informed her that she was not able to go into the recreation room due to it being closed, and informed her that she will be able to use the recreation room when it opens at 9 a.m. Resident Stanton became upset with Ms. Lester and smacked her in the face. Ms. Lester then smacked Resident Stanton back, and the 2 engaged in a physical altercation. Case manager Anna Talbot and Officer Jasmine Washington with Elite Security immediately ran over to the recreation room to de-escalate the situation. After de-escalating the situation, Program Assistant Monique Lester was asked to take a 30-minute break to calm down. At approximately 7:11 a.m., EMS was contacted for Resident Stanton as she appeared to be under the influence of an unknown substance. At approximately 7:18 a.m., EMS arrived to the site and transported Resident Stanton to the Washington Hospital Center.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. So this is quite a bit of a situation. Number 1, how soon should TCP be made aware of this incident? And how should TCP be made aware?
They should be notified as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, but what's the time limit for this?
We got people in the chat saying within 2 hours via the hotline.
That is correct. This is an emergency incident because it involved a client engaging in a physical altercation with a staff member. So this should be reported via TCP's emergency incident report hotline within 2 hours. Great job. Number 2, what step or steps should the program take during the investigation process? So think back to what we talked about earlier in the training with incidents like this. What steps should the program be taking regarding this incident? And this may also be a request from TCP as well. Well, this will definitely be a request from TCP.
And what's being done after the fact. Also review all footage to actually see what took place.
That is correct. There is one big thing that I'm looking for with this incident that should take place.
I have a few people in the chat saying that the staff should be sent home or not working on the programs until the investigation is closed.
Exactly. Good job, guys. So I understand, look, we human, right? But you should not be assaulting a client. I understand that in this situation, the client hit the program assistant first. However, it is never okay for a staff member to physically assault a client. In this situation, TCP will request that employee be removed from the site while an investigation takes place. Good job. Number 3, what supporting documents should be submitted along with this unusual incident report?
From security.
Say that one more time, Nicole. I got the tail end of it.
I said the security report.
Yep. The security incident report is definitely a document that should be submitted along with this report. What else?
I got a response in the chat about police report.
That is correct. Well, here it says the police wasn't contacted. So, but if the police was contacted, yes, that would definitely secure the police report would be something that's needed.
They also would need the medical information because he was transported to the hospital.
That is correct. All right, let's jump on to number 4. What information is missing from this unusual incident report?
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna say we have people in the chat saying follow-up plan, a witness, and
Yes.
video, EMS
Absolutely.
information.
Absolutely. Great job, guys. And last, please identify which entities this report should be submitted to. This is an unusual incident report. Who should this be submitted to? Just want to make sure that this is clear.
It will go to TCP.
And who else?
Ooh.
This is an unusual incident report. So those should be submitted to 2 entities, TCP and who else?
People in the chat are saying TCP and DHS.
That is correct. Awesome. All right, y'all. Last scenario before our Q&A. Can I have one more volunteer take us on home with this last scenario?
All righty. At approximately 7:08 p.m., the power went out at the Betterment for Men Permanent Housing Program. At 7:20 p.m., program supervisor Justina Jones contacted PEPCO to inform them about the power outage. The power remained off for approximately 2 hours and 36 minutes. During the power outage, resident Jeffrey Morris' skin appeared to be flushed and began sweating profusely. I approached Jeffrey Morris and asked if he was okay and if he needed medical attention. He reported that he was overheated, but denied needing medical attention and requested water. I think the reason for Mr. Morris overheating was not due to the power outage, but it was due to his frequent drug use. I provided Mr. Morris with a bottle of water and cool towel to help him cool off. Mr. Morris was closely monitored by program staff the remainder of the day.
Thank you, Ms. Bartley.
You're welcome.
So, question 1, please identify the errors with this critical incident report.
Okay, number 1, the assumptions that his heat, him being overheated due to drug use. That's an assumption.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the biggest errors with this report. Remember, we talked about the beginning of this training. Incident reports should be free from opinions. That is her opinion. That is not a fact. So that should not have been included in this report. Great job, Tiana. Are there any other errors that folks see with this incident report?
Okay, I may be wrong, but I seem to remember that one of the reasons that we need to call the hotline is if a power is out for more than 2 hours.
Absolutely. Good job, Becky. That is correct. This power outage remained for 2 hours to 36 minutes. So this is now an emergency incident. So this should be reported to TCP via the emergency incident report hotline within 2 hours. Good job, Becky. That was great. There's one more error, or a big error.
I don't know, but he didn't accept the medical attention, so the appropriate document.
That is correct. The refusal of medical attention form should have been provided to Mr. Morris because he refused medical attention. And that document should be submitted along with the incident report. Good job, Tiana. So that kind of ties into number 3. Please identify what the program staff failed to do. So they failed to provide Mr. Morris with the refusal of medical attention form. As we discussed during the training, that is to protect you guys. Trust me, if it comes down to it, a client will say that, oh, I wasn't provided medical attention. And if they say that, you can bring up your documentation and say that we offered it to you and you refused. It is very important to make sure that you guys are offering or providing those refusal of medical attention forms to folks that decline medical attention. What supporting documents should be submitted along with this critical incident report? Obviously, a medical attention refusal of medical attention form should be submitted. Are there any other documents that should be submitted with this report? So for this one, the only thing that would need to be submitted along with this report is, of course, the refusal of medical attention form. For an incident like this, TCP, of course, may reach back out to you and ask in status to see if the power came back on, to see if any other assistance is needed, maybe water or anything needed to the site. So with this one, it just may need the medical refusal of medical attention form. Last question. Since this is a critical incident report, who should this report be submitted to?
We do have a few people in the chat saying TCP. Another person said DHS, somebody else said HUD.
Nope, so this would not be submitted to DHS. Remember, critical incident reports are for HUD-funded programs, and they do not require submission to DHS. Critical incident reports will only be submitted to TCP. DHS-funded programs with the use of the unusual incident report should be submitted to both TCP and DHS. So just remember, critical incident report, TCP. Unusual incident report, DHS and TCP. All right, great job, guys, with these scenarios. Awesome. So we are now in the part for questions. If you guys have any questions regarding any of the information, please feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself to ask questions.
We did have a question from Muriel Drago earlier. It said, if you neglect or forget to add supporting documents to the UIR, where or who do you send the documents to?
If you forget to upload documents to support a UIR, you can email them to either myself or Mr. Shawn Billups, or you can, if this is an unusual incident report, you can submit an addendum to the report and then add those supporting documents. An addendum allows you to provide any updated information regarding the incident, and then from there you can provide any updated documents that you would like to submit. Same for a critical incident report. You can submit an addendum. Say this is an addendum to the report submitted on such and such date. Attached is the refusal of medical attention form or any other documents that you may have left off.
I have a question from Carrie Foster. Carrie, you can come off mute.
Yeah, I noticed in all the scenarios, none of the facility addresses were used. Is that not required?
So with unusual incident reports, there's you guys are required to plug in all of the information before you even get down to the description of the incident. So for unusual incident reports, there is a section where you're asked the program name, the provider name, the address, and all of that stuff. So that stuff is already included. Now for critical incident reports, since it does not have like a incident report form, then you guys are required to include that all of that information into the narrative of your report. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then so same with security incident reports. Most security vendors have their own template or forms for incident reports that already has that information pre-filled at the top, the agency name, address, and all of that stuff. But if it does not, that would need to be included in the narrative of your report.
Thank you.
No problem.
Going to go to LaSharon Bartley. You can unmute.
Okay, so, and I may have missed it, Ashley, if I'm not mistaken. Did we mention anything about the language line?
We did not mention anything about the language line, but what you need to know.
Well, no, I was going to say, because I know at Patricia Handy Place for Women, we do submit a form through the Google app when we have to use the language line, because I did have an incident to whereas the particular client, she spoke Portuguese.
Yep. So that's fine. So if you are you mean to like to report an incident? So
Well, I guess you wouldn't have to send that because it really doesn't require any type of approval. But I mean, I just didn't know whether or not you mentioned the language line just in this presentation. I didn't think I saw it, but I just wanted to kind of bring that up, that that's something that we do utilize at Patricia Handy. Well, actually in Street Village.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we did mention the language access line during this training or presentation. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I have 2 more hands. I have Desiree Minor. Desiree, you can unmute.
I just wanted clarification that there is no standard form to submit a CIR, that can just be done in a narrative form, like on a sheet or typed up. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, great. And well, I had put a question in the chat. How did you say you were going to send the PowerPoint? I'm sorry. Is it you going to upload it, or how you
Yep, we
gonna
can send the slides out via email, but this presentation was also recorded and it'll be uploaded to
Right.
TCP's website.
Oh, okay. So on the website, is there like a section for trainings, or would it be under?
This will be under the incident reporting tab.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. And Stephanie at 0596, let me see, you are unmuted, or you are able to unmute if you want to come off mute.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I just wanted some clarity as well. In regards to, I'm pretty sure you mentioned it during the training. However, it's become problematic where, for example, a staff will call a case manager and indicate there's an emergency. And I'm just kind of, I guess, just getting some clarity and for you to reemphasize how important it is that, according to what you mentioned, if there's an unusual incident, staff should not call another staff. They should be reporting the incident instead of calling a staff about the incident, which that's happened a few times in our office where there's other staff that's dealing with an emergency, and then they'll call the case management staff to basically call 911, which I think is just kind of really frustrating. Because if it's a 911 call, then 911 should be called, not the case management staff.
So it depends.
Am I correct?
So it depends. So now if it's an incident that requires assistance, like, so for an example, if a client is unresponsive and that staff member has to perform CPR, it's kind of challenging to tend to the unresponsive client and contact 911. So in instances like that, I can see a staff member calling or whether it be walkie-talkie or however you guys communicate internally to contact 911 or to get backup. Now, as it relates to reporting the incident or completing the incident report, the individual that witnessed the incident themselves has to complete the report. It cannot be completed via hearsay. Does that make sense? So now, as it relates to attending to the incident, it's okay to get backup because some incidents require more than one staff person to de-escalate.
Right, and I agree with that totally. However, what I found is that the staff will call the case manager and they, it's like, for example, there was an incident where one of the clients had fallen outside and I didn't see it, but I was called to say, oh, okay, fill out an incident report. I wasn't even in the program. So I think that's just, just very, very frustrating because if I'm not there, as you said, that's hearsay. You can't call me and say something happened and then expect me to fill out an incident report.
Yes. So the person that witnessed it should have been filling out the report, not you, because you weren't there to witness it.
Correct. Now I understand the scenario that you gave in regards to, call 911, somebody shouting out, and then they are administering CPR, whatever, life-saving service. Service. I understand that, but a scenario such that I mentioned, that can be very problematic, because
Correct.
someone's expecting me to fill out an incident report and I'm not present for the incident.
Yep. So the person that witnessed the incident, anytime, they should not be calling another staff person to complete the incident report. That person should be completing the incident report themselves since they witnessed the incident directly.
Okay.
So I would suggest maybe
Mhm.
raising that concern to your leadership to, have an internal meeting so that can be addressed internally. But folks should not be completing incident reports on behalf of somebody else or something that's communicated via hearsay.
Okay. All right. I just wanted some clarity with that. Thank you.
No problem. Of course.
Going off of that, somebody in the chat asked if they can get clarity on hearsay. Do we only report what we witnessed, or do we also report incidents clients report to us sometime after the incident?
So if a client comes directly to you and say, hey, this happened to me, then you will put that in the report. Client Brian James reported to me that X, Y, and Z. Now, if it's something that you witnessed yourself, maybe the client was engaged in a physical altercation with another client, that's something that you witnessed directly. You could just put that in the incident report. I saw, blah, blah, blah. I witnessed, blah, blah, blah. But if a client comes to you and report, hey, such and such hit me yesterday, then you would just complete an incident report and say, Brian came to me and reported that, blah, blah, blah. That makes sense? Did that answer your question?
We have another question in the chat. If someone refuses to sign a refusal of medical form, do you need someone to sign it, or do you just write on there refuse to sign?
So there's a line on the refusal of medical attention form right under the line for client signature. And it says, if client refuses to sign, signature of witness. So if you witness the incident and you know that the client refuses to sign, you can sign in that place of the witness.
There was another question in the chat. I know we have 2 hands raised, but I just don't want to miss this. One of the individuals in the chat said, I sometimes have problems with DHS reports. Once submitted, the whole report does not show, only the allegation number. Do you download prior to submitting?
So yes, sometimes the quick-based system, there are issues with that. So right after you're done completing the report, there's an option. So if you run into the option with download, sometimes the download option does not come up. I tell providers that they can do the print option. So act like you're going to print the document, and then it says print the PDF. That'll automatically download that report to your computer, and you can save it and upload it that way. So I know sometimes the DHS report is tricky and it doesn't have that download feature. If it doesn't, use that print to PDF option and they'll download it to your computer and you can have it and upload it that way.
Okay, I have a hand raised from Angela. Angela, you can unmute.
Good afternoon. So I have a question. In the scenarios where there were physical altercations, people getting hit, stabbed, things of that nature, is it not proper protocol, one, when incidents take place, to close the floor to minimize any additional issues with, other residents being in the way? And two, in the scenario where an individual was stabbed and then later found that they had a pocket knife on them, my question is, why weren't they searched when they entered the facility? And if they weren't searched, then maybe other residents weren't searched either. So then do you search everyone?
Okay, so you said quite a bit. So regarding the part about closing down the floor, yes, it is necessary to close down the floor when there's an incident that takes place. So if there's like a stabbing or assault or whatever the case may be, and you need to close down the floor to assess or cater to the situation, that is necessary and that's okay to do. Now, part
But shouldn't that be
two.
documented in the usual incident report that the floor is closed?
Yes, that's fine. You can document that after, because that's leading to your follow-up steps or your follow-up plan. After the situation was de-escalated, we closed down the floor to clean up or whatever the case may be. That is okay to include that in the report.
No, I mean close up to address the situation. So if somebody got stabbed, I would think the first thing to do is close the floor to, get the bystanders out the way so you can address what you're doing.
Right. Yes, so you're asking, is it okay to include that in the report?
No, shouldn't it be included in the report?
Yes. So remember, we said being as detailed as possible. So if you had to close down the floor to address the situation, that should be included in the report as well.
And as far as the individual that came in with a knife and stabbed someone, so that tells me they weren't searched upon entry. So that means other residents can also have weapons. So at that point, do you institute a search of all residents? And also,
So now we're getting into those two separate things. So as it relates to a search, there's ways you can't just search a resident. You have to do a building inspection. That's what it's called. And residents have to be notified in advance about the building inspection. So you can't, just because an incident like that takes place, you can't just go and search all of your residents. That's a violation of their rights. They have to be notified that there will be a search. So you can't do that. Now, when we talked about an internal investigation, that gets into your internal investigation. This person was able to come into the facility with a weapon. How was they able to make it through security with this weapon? So then that would lead into your internal investigation, checking the surveillance footage where they searched before coming into the facility. Those would be things that we would need to look for in our internal investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tabitha Carroll has a hand raised. Tabitha, you can unmute.
Everyone, I wondered, you said it's a, I just caught into the last thing. The question I was having, what is the name of it when you have the whole building search, and how long of time do you have to notify the client the resident before you can do the search?
So it's called a building inspection. So it's not a search, because we have to be really technical when it comes down to things like that.
Called building
and building inspection.
Building, okay.
So if you guys suspect that there's a weapon that's on the premises, you guys have to do a building inspection, and all clients have to be notified at least 24 hours prior to the building inspection. So they can be notified via flyers that's hung and presented in the facility, notifying them about the time and date of the inspection. They could be notified via a community meeting or a building meeting. And also with the building inspection, if you're a program that has security on site, the building inspection has to be completed only by program staff, but security can accompany the program staff to complete the search. So security is not able to just go through a client's belongings during the building inspection. That has to be only program staff. Now, if a weapon is identified, then if security is at your site, is able to come in, confiscate, and all of that. But to answer your question, 24 hours, clients have to be made aware of the building inspection. It can be via flyer, it can be a community meeting, anything like that, but they have to be notified prior to the inspection.
Yes, I just wanted to ask one question. I've been trying to answer for a minute. When you're doing the UIR and you fill out the format and everything for it, would it be appropriate to send the same URI to like in an ICU report? Because it has the same information that's needed. Would that be appropriate?
Ask your question for me one more time. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Okay, you're doing the UIR report, but you have to turn both of them in. And what I'm saying is, can you use that same report because it has all the same information in it?
The same report is what? So I know you're talking about the UIR report.
The same as the URI.
So I guess what are you comparing the report to? You said
I'm
so
making
there's
a copy of it to send. I'm doing one URI that goes to TCP, but it has to go to the other organization
DHS?
Yeah, DHS. So
Yeah.
can you just send that exact
Yep, it's
same
the same.
copy over to them? It's the
Yep, it's the
same
same.
information.
Yep, it's the same report. So we don't require you to submit a separate report. So remember we talked about when you go into the DHS website, the quick base system, when you complete
Yeah.
the report, you're literally just downloading a copy of that same report and uploading it to TCP's tracker. It's the same
Yeah,
report.
when you print it, it automatically does that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you don't have to fill out two separate reports. You're just literally giving us the same report that you provided to DHS.
Okay. Got you. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say was that even though the case manager didn't witness it, the ship assistant may not have the expertise to get the job done and needs help. I mean, even though it's coming from her perspective of what happened, right? You should assist her with it. You know, you're a team there, right?
So you can assist her, but you shouldn't be writing the report for her.
No, that's not what I said. You should at least assist if you, especially find that she needs help or he needs help, because you're a team. You know, to get the job done, right? Maybe it may require to help the person to do that. That's all I was saying.
Yep. No, so that's I get what you're saying. You could definitely help with maybe explaining to them what to put in the report, how to complete the report, but it should be only completed by the person that witnessed the report. All right. So giving you guys back 2 minutes of your time. We went really close to 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining this training. I really hope that you guys got a lot of information out of this and it was helpful for you as it relates to your completing an unusual incident report and a critical incident report and submitting it in the investigation process. If you have any questions regarding the completion of unusual incident reports or critical incident reports or the investigation process, please feel free to reach out to myself. Here's my contact information, my email address, or Mr. Billups. Here's his email address as well. And we will be definitely willing to assist you guys. There's no more questions. That's it for today. You guys are welcome to go. I know you guys are hungry and going about your day. Thank you so much for joining us today.